This week on MuscleCar, our Project GT350 returns, and we'll meet another muscle Mustang, a '68 Shelby that's now the car that might have been. Then it's brake tech, from the racetrack to the real world, coming up on MuscleCar.
Hey everybody, welcome to MuscleCar. My partner in crime isn't here today, so I decided to break out the old Mustang, the GT350 clone. But first, I got a road trip for you. We're gonna take you to a resto shop on the West Coast to see the first retro concept car, a build that started with a genuine Shelby, and it took it a whole lot further. Basically, it's a whole new car, one that Carroll Shelby might have imagined back in the day. Now, some guys, they have a problem with our clone project because it's not all original, but that's okay. The average guy doesn't have the bank account to go out and buy an original one. So hey, take matters into your own hands and build it. That's what we're gonna do. And we've got some building to do on this one. It's a regular old 65 Fastback that someone tried to turn into a B production race car. But they gave up on this one before it was finished. And what they did do is not all that good. Check out the way they mangled that floor trying to replace it. And that wad of rust in the door. The engine wasn't original. It came with a Hypo 289, but somewhere along the line it got replaced with a 351 Windsor. We're totally redoing this engine and body, so a lot of these parts weren't worth keeping. And we spent the whole day just chopping stuff off and throwing it away. That old 351 went down the hall to the guys at Horsepower. It's getting fuel injection and a lot more Roush performance parts, so it's gonna be top of the line when we get it back. Again, this is not a real Shelby. It's gonna be a clone. And that's big business these days. It's a simple formula. Light car, big engine, heavy foot on the gas. You'd be amazed at some of the cars that Carroll Shelby's been involved with. We all know the Shelby Mustang, but this guy's work goes way back.
This is the MGTC that I drove at Norman, Oklahoma in 1951.
50 years ago, Carroll Shelby was one of the top sports car racers in the USA and Europe. He won the 24 Hours of Le Mans and earned an international reputation. He quit driving and built what just might be the original tuner car. This is where it all started, back in '61, with an English sports car, the AC Bristol. Shelby tore out that engine, dropped in a 289, and labeled it a Cobra. A weak little roadster became a real muscle car, the first step in a long, legendary journey that's still going on today. And a few years later, Shelby took that idea right over the top with the Cobra 427, more powerful than most vets, and only 2/3 as heavy. MuscleCar magazine said the 427 Cobra was the fastest muscle car ever. And the racing Cobras were even stronger. Shelby's Daytona Coupe would run over 200 miles an hour on a long straightaway. Every car on this track is connected to Carroll Shelby's in one way or another. MG, Cobra, GT40, Viper, Maserati, Jag, even Toyota. He drove it, designed it, built it, sold it, or just made it better than what it was before he got it. Even some little four-cylinder Chryslers carried the Shelby name back in the day, the 80s, but are those real Shelbys? Let's just say it's still open for discussion. Shelby made up for that when he helped Chrysler develop the Viper, another classic example of muscle, power, and attitude. The original Cobra went back into production in the late 80s. Shelby saw a lot of competitors making copies and figured it was time for the real Cobra to return to the road.
All I hear is screaming for these guys that stole my idea to begin with, and it's really quite comical.
And while the Cobra is still being made, Shelby's latest project is the GT8, a special edition rental car. You can get this one from Hertz. It's a throwback to a similar deal that Hertz and Shelby did 40 years ago. And it's that same approach, once again. Small car, ferocious V8, just one more chapter in the Shelby legend. Now all of those were factory, but we got one coming up we're gonna show you guys. This guy took a 68 Shelby GT350 and he turned it into what he's calling a retro concept car. It's pretty neat.
Next on MuscleCar, the making of the Logan Edition Shelby.
Every now and then, we find a build that's so unusual and so cool, we just gotta show it to you. This one is a 1968 Shelby GT, retro concept. It's the Shelby that could have been. This is what happened when Jerry Logan got to wondering what Carroll Shelby might have done back in the 60s. Jerry wanted to make a kind of super Shelby, something lower, faster, more aggressive, and sinister. So he bought a 68 GT350 out of a museum, found a builder, and got to work. He had an idea for something called a retro concept car. It's a Genie Shelby with some major changes. More modern, stronger, and built to run.
I think Shelby did a great job. I mean, he did a little work on the engine. He did the side scoops, he did the hood, he did the trunk, and several other things performance-wise. But today's environment's a little bit different, and today's thinking is a little bit different in regards to what's cool or what's motivating to one's eye.
These gonna get steak pockets too?
Oh.
So who would want to do all of that to original Shelby, and why? Well, Jerry says he's always been a car guy. He owns Bushwhacker, the leading maker of fender flares for on and off-road vehicles, and Unichip, developer of high-performance chips for cars and trucks. The Logan Edition Mustang comes out of Dave Eckert's Resto Mod Shop out of Portland, Oregon. It's a combination of fine details and brute power.
You walk around this car, it's unusual.
3/16 body gap and a stroke supercharged small block. A custom interior done in snakeskin and leather. And 625 ponies under the hood. 20 coats of custom pearl metallic paint and a custom 4-bar suspension. You know it's a Shelby, but it's just a little different. And sometimes you have to look pretty close just to realize how special it is.
My important thing is the quality needs to be the same throughout the whole car. So in other words, we don't want to dump a ton of money in this motor and then stick it in an engine compartment that's totally stock, where the motor outshines the rest of the car. Or the paint job's awesome, but you open up the hood and it's unfinished underneath.
The first thing that hits you is the stance. The second thing is the paint. Then the subtleties start hitting home. You look at the door and the door seams, the hood seam, the trunk seam, they're all the same.
Building the Logan Edition took a year and a half, starting with that original 68, stripped and primed. It got a new front spoiler and a new tail. The whole body sits lower. This baby's just 5 inches off the deck. The Eckert build team put in a whole new suspension, custom designed for this car. ERC prototype coilovers in the front, ERC 4-bar in the back, and braced up the floor pan just to resist the twist. The engine of this retro concept went in next. The original 302 small block was stroked out to 349 with a Paxton centrifugal supercharger on the top, because that's the same brand Shelby used in his race cars.
They look beautiful, they got a lot of power, but they just don't corner, they don't stop. So my thing was I wanted to make them handle, I wanted to make them stop, I wanted to make them perform like a brand new sports car, but in the old body.
You've never seen a Mustang or probably a street car this tight. Jerry said going in on this deal, he wanted the car low, shaved, French, and fast. That meant every piece of trim on the body, every letter, even the Cobra logo had to be flush mounted. The bumpers were pulled in right up against the sheet metal, and everything is aero. Nothing's left to hang out in the wind. They even laid out the stripes with a laser so they could follow the shape of the body. But this is no trailer queen. Its real home is the highway. That all goes back to Jerry Logan's original idea. Take a classic performance car, improve on it, and when it's done, drive it. Because back in '68, and again today, this one was built to roll.
And that's exactly what I wanted to do with this particular car, is make it different, make it smooth, make it today.
Later on MuscleCar, the Logan Shelby hits the track. But next, we'll show you how to help your muscle car stop on a dime without spending too many dollars.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the shop. Our Mustang is a classic example of all go, no stop. So we're gonna fix that by putting disc brakes on it all the way around, and we're gonna get rid of these drum brakes because I have no idea how they used to stop back in the day. But we can show you a really good, inexpensive way, or we can take it way over the top. These are what you get if you've got 40 grand laying around. The ultimate race car brake, 4 pistons, and everything's carbon fiber, the pads and the rotors. Each rotor is one really long piece of carbon fiber wrapped and molded into shape. This is what you see on $1 million prototype race car. Nothing quite like them in the world. Half the price, but still expensive. Pretty much the same setup with an iron rotor. You'll find these on a NASCAR stock car, somewhere like Martinsville where they hit the brakes 2,000 times in one race. And these things get hot. 4 pistons, iron rotor, 20 grand a set. Now for $2,200, you can buy these massive 13-inch bare brakes. These babies have got about twice the stopping power of a regular stock system, which is really cool. But we're gonna show you an inexpensive way to stop that car with a stock brake setup. We pulled the front brakes off our El Camino and took them to Midas for a little tune-up. What's up, guys?
Hey, how you doing?
Bob, can you cut a rotor for me?
I sure can.
You're the man. Resurfacing eliminates any scoring and corrects excessive runout. This really improves your stopping power.
What this is doing right now is it's putting a real nice finish on it.
Yeah.
And then when we get done with this, we'll just block sand it, and then it'll be ready to install on the car.
Dude, we're in there. We're in there.
Yeah, this will be the last cut.
And that new surface on your rotors calls for new pads. And if you really want to get the best stopping power on your car, put some top-of-the-line pads against those shiny rotors, and you can really tell the difference. Now here's a final step that a lot of brake shops don't even bother with, and it really is the finishing touch. To get a smooth finish, the rotor is dressed with 120 grit sandpaper on a sanding block. After cleaning it with soapy water, the rotor is ready to go.
And there we go. One refinished rotor. Feel how smooth it is.
Oh yeah, those round blades make a nice cut, man. I really like that, seriously. Yeah. Bob, Sputamus, the gentleman of scholar is damn few of us left. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Red Bob, it's been a slice, man. See ya.
Coming up on MuscleCar, that's Super Shelby on the street and the strip.
Welcome back to the shop. There's a ton of man hours that you see on that Shelby, and there'll be a ton in our clone. But there's a bunch of those hours you just don't see till you get it on the track. Jerry Logan's retro concept Shelby was just barely finished when we showed up at his garage in Oregon. And he was still getting used to that race car handling and supercharged small block power.
It feels good. It feels strong. Suspension is really good.
But city traffic is not the place to find out what the Logan Edition can really do. So we're heading for the racetrack, and getting there is gonna be interesting.
Gives you that feel of surging power when you get on it.
And everything underneath is tucked up inside the frame rails so it won't scrape the pavement, even when the Shelby is flying low. Jerry won't talk about the price of this showpiece, but 4,000 man hours involved in this genuine Shelby, we're guessing is close to $250,000.
Well, I dump all this money in just a trailer queen Why not make it so it can be shown, and when you're done showing it, not have to go backwards, not have to change a thing, just hop in it and drive it.
First run on the strip, just warming up. Second, a little bit better. And on run number 3, the Logan edition is beginning to show us something. Now this is a shakedown cruise, and nowhere near all out.
I mean, you can put slicks on there and really dial it in if you want it to be a quarter-mile car. But then again, like I said, it's not about the quarter mile, it's the overall performance of the car. That's what I'm after.
Carroll Shelby's already seen this car once back in his former life before all the changes. He's even signed a visor on the passenger side. Jerry wouldn't mind seeing his car go to a museum someday, but for right now, he just wants to drive it a little, show it off a lot, and maybe find out what Mr. Shelby thinks of it now.
Hopefully Carroll will have a smile on his face and when he sees this particular car, and if I can talk him into it, I think I'm going to have him sign the driver's side.
The Logan Edition Mustang is out on the show circuit this season. We got a lot of work left to do on our clone, and that's okay, because next week we're going to concentrate on the crate Camaro for one simple reason. We need to get this baby done so we can get it in one of you guys' driveway, and I'm out of here. Later.